Good evening, everybody. I'm getting all of my platforms together. So if you see this, that is why. Ooh, let me put my headset on. Oh, let me close my door. I have a heater that makes a lot of noise. And sometimes when I'm recording, you can't hear me. So I'm going to go ahead and prevent that now. Let's see. All right, let's get this going. So, this is Brian again with Healing in the Vein. And tonight we're going to talk about fear. How we're going to defeat fear. How we're going to master this thing called fear that's in our lives. So, over the last few days, I've been meditating on it, having conversations in different groups of people or with different groups of people, and we have all had the same conclusion when it comes to fear, that fear gets you stuck, right? And it wouldn't uh I'm not going to say it wouldn't bother me, because fear does bother me. It irritates me because I've worked with people, so many different people, where their lives have been put on halt because they are afraid. They're afraid to be themselves. They are afraid to take chances. They are afraid to do things outside of their norm, which, if your norm is already keeping you stuck, why not venture out, right? Why not do something new? The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over again, expecting a different result. I can't continue to turn on the cold water switch expecting hot water to flow. I must cut on the hot water. Uh, I was about to say speak it faucet, but switch. I have to turn it over to heat, right, to get heat. And in the different conversations, and they were not spiritual. They were not. They were just general conversations. And I realized how much fear has been placed on everybody. And I want to make this statement. If you disagree with something that I say, I'm not going to filter myself because of you. I'm going to speak what I receive always. I'm not going to shut up. Uh, I'm not going to put a muzzle over my mouth. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm being called and led to do for people, right? I can't. If people understood how much, how many, how long I have dealt with spiritual stuff, you wouldn't even think to ask. You wouldn't even dare open your mouth. And I'm saying this to serve warning because God, Spirit, the man upstairs, Father, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, whatever you call the person that's not on this earth, and in that other plane that we call the spiritual world, does not play when it comes to me. And because of that reason, I cannot have fear when I have to deliver a message, no matter how hurtful, troublesome, disturbing, out of the norm it seems. I have to deliver it how I'm receiving it. Why? Because God is in God is in this time period of our lives where he's disrupting the norm. People have been living blindly and mindlessly for years, for decades, for centuries, right? And in the Christian world, there is the time of the end days are approaching, right? So I want us to look through this lens. If the end days are coming and you are still living blindly and you are still accepting word and you are still grasping on to people's words and not doing studies for yourself, then you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for staying stuck in the same position. You're setting yourself up and you're wondering why your situations are not changing, and it's because they are not changing because you are not changing. I gave an example a few weeks ago, and um, I used the example of communion, right? There's this tradition that we wear all white, and I have never seen that scripture in the Bible that says my followers must wear all white when doing communion. That's just a man-made rhetoric. And if you say white is purity, well, there's some cultures that believe that white is actually evil. So if they've grown up all these many years believing that the color white is actually a demonic color, are you now going to tell them, "Oh, it's not a demonic color. Just wear white. It'll be all right. It'll be all right." So again, this is man-made stuff. And and yes, I know colors mean things and represent things. So I get that, right? But understand where it came from. What is the backstory? Who first said we shall wear white to commemorate Jesus and what he's done for us, right? Now, mind you, I'm giving examples. So, what I was saying during that time is, what if you're led to wear something red? I mean, red is for the blood, is it not? That's what people say. You know, red is this bold color. It is representative of the blood, right? So if you wear red and you receive a message during the service because you decide to wear red that day, because you decide to listen along with what Spirit was telling you, then you go get your blessing. But if you decide to wear white because you're fearful of what those around you may say, you're fearful of being judged, you're fearful of the naysayers say you can't, you know, you never do anything right, you're always doing things wrong, and da 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 da. You have people in your ear. You have people in your ear, and they're telling you things based off of what they think you should do. They're telling you things based off of what they've done all these many years. And how dare you bring something new to the table? And so you decide to wear white because out of fear. And now the person delivering the message is trying to find that person pinpointed out by spirit, by God. And the person can't find you. Why? Because you look like everybody else. Because you didn't step outside of the box. Because you're doing everything that everybody else is doing. You're following along the crowd and not taking leadership. Spirit, God, Father, Mother is looking for leaders. Is looking for people that are not going to put up with the norm. When we protest and march, yes, there is a solidarity in what we do and how we do things. But the people that get the most attention are the people that goes against the grain the hardest and don't play it safe. The people that go to get that gets the most attention are the ones that have the loudest voice in the room, that have the most passion in their voice in the room, that is telling you that, my child, we cannot do the same things and expect to change. We must do something that is more powerful and stronger than ever. We must be more unified in disrupting the system and breaking down the walls. And how can you when you are living in the box of fear? With fear, your voice is weak. It's not as powerful and strong. You kind of talk with the whisper. Your body temperature changes, it drops. If you've been ever been depressed or super or extremely sad, you know that your physical body goes through a change. Your temperature drops. You're not hot, you're getting cold. And what happens when you're cold? You get frozen. And when you get frozen, you're stuck. But when you start speaking up, when you start speaking truth, when you start to warm up, when you start to get heated, you have no choice but to burn those things that are holding you away. You have no choice but to burn up the lies that people have been telling you for years. The curses that people have been speaking over you gets consumed in this fire. Why? Because the Holy Spirit is connected to this fire. And the Holy Spirit comes to free people. You know why? because spirit itself is freedom. Freedom, I mean, for freedom, spirit is not confined to the physicality of the humanistic qualities that we serve. And if you're wondering, what did he just say? Spirit does not do the same thing as people. Spirit can walk through walls. This flesh cannot walk through anything. That is why when people tap into the spiritual realm, no matter which fence they are tapping in from, there is a supernatural experience. And you can't experience a supernatural experience in bondage. Now, when I say this, I'm talking about an internal supernatural experience, because things do happen in the physical realm inspired by the spirit. And when that happens, you're either going to do one or two things. You're going to accept it for what it is, or you're going to be afraid and you're going to run from it. And again, what are we talking about? Getting rid of the fear in your life. When you start to embrace what you're being led to do, you will see how doors open for you. You will see how situations that you used to get in no longer has a hold over you. You will see that people that had control over you no longer have control over you. I've told people, and I think that I think there are times when people don't understand or believe the things that I say when it concerns me. And when I tell you, I have seen and witnessed and been told about spiritual experiences from the things that I have shared. I'm not just saying things. I'm convinced. I don't have to put up a front. I know what is on the inside. I don't be cocky. I am confident in knowing what and how God uses me and what God has done for me. Like the song says, uh, you can't tell it, let me tell it. What he's done for me, right? Because people can share their perception of what they see, but until they have lived your shoes, they cannot understand the totality of what has been happening with you on in the physical realm, going through a spiritual experience. There are so many things that I have experienced as a child that I am just now in my 30s understanding what was taking place when I was a child. And I'm talking about 3, 4, 5 years of age. Yes, my mind goes back that far. I even to this day, I don't know why, can taste baby formula. So when I see baby formula in a bottle, I get sick because it's a nasty taste. Random comment, but it's the truth. But when you have lived a life that has literally pushed you to a door, pushed you to do certain things, pushed you in a space that's unknown to you, and yes, it is fearful because you have grown up in a society that tells you you must confine yourself to certain things. You must label yourself at certain things. And I grew up in the generation of we don't want to be labeled anything. Don't label us, because the minute that you label us, you're missing out on everything else that comes with us. So if you just label me as uh Brian, the online preacher, right? You miss out on everything else about me that can help you. And if someone says, I am looking for a healer, and you say, oh, well, I know Brian, he's a preacher, he could. I didn't ask for a preacher. I'm looking for a healer. And we do these things so that our minds can wrap around what we're looking for. There are so many names that we name God so that we can understand that when we're talking about the supreme spirit, that when we say, oh God, have mercy on me, that everybody else around us can understand, oh, we're talking about Big G. We're talking about Supreme Spirit, the one, the creator. But if we took all of that away, if we took away the names, if we took away the confinements, and we start to understand that our walk on this earth and that our assignments are meant to show us how limitless we can be, we will stop saying, we will stop going by like these titles, right? And my mother and I have this conversation all the time. We just don't like titles. Just my mother named me Brian, call me Brian, right? I know it's a respect thing, right? But in order to get all of me, in order to get um everything that you need from me, that you're requesting, that God, that spirit is requesting me to do for you, if I'm invited to your space, just know that Brian is going to show up, because there are many sides to Brian. There are many gifts inside of Brian. And whichever way that the spirit wishes to use Brian at that time is what you're going to get. And I guarantee that you're going to get the message that you need from spirit. I remember a lady that came to a church when I was growing up, and we became close, and we did lose touch. But I still remember the conversations and the things that she told me. Now, she was known for singing, and she was invited to the venue for singing. But when she was invited, she said she was under the impression that she had been asked to preach. And she said, I came here with a word. I've been laying before God to give you a word, not a song. And I have a word for you. So, yes, she did sing very briefly, but she delivered the word that she had from God. And when we limit people, we're placing confinements on them. That is why I have a huge problem with the church in certain areas. Like I didn't. How can you tell me that you see the calling of God on my life, but you confine me to certain roles, but you expect me to serve God, right? In spirit and truth, right? And I can serve God in spirit and truth. But the minute that you see that God is working and using me more and more and more, you develop a jealous spirit, just like Saul did with David, and try to sabotage everything that God is using in me. Try to sabotage the work that God is trying to do through me. And I'm saying this just as an example. This is just an example so people can understand how we get limitations placed on us, right? And so what happens is that I am set down, I'm chastised, I'm openly rebuked. And so then I get in this position, the fearful position. And now I'm doing things that men want me to do because man has constraints and confinements, because I want the service, I want this to look this way. And now you're asking people to be disobedient to God. Yes, God works in decency and order, but you also have to know that with order also comes a strategic order. It's not just an order as in an order or run of show of a program. That's not what that is meant. It is meant to, there's an orderly fashion in which deliverances can happen. There's an orderly fashion in which blessings can occur. There's an orderly fashion for which gifts are released at a time such as this, a prophetic time, what have you. There's a lot of things that are coming to pass that people have been speaking about for years, and it's just now hitting the airwaves. It's just now touching the lives that are meant to make changes on this earth, right? And people have to get out of the fear of my protege is going to outshine me, so I must dim their light because I don't want people to go to them. Because yes, controlling people is a fear mechanism. I want to control the narrative. I want to say that I bless this person. I want them to say that they get all of their anointings and their gifts from me. And if you're not into the church world, what that looks like is, I don't want this artist to do more than me. I want them to say that they learned all their techniques and skills from me. When baby, you came here already with the perfect brush stroke. You already came here with the gift of speaking eloquently, and so people ask you to come and speak and give your TED Talks and encourage. You already came with the ability of writing books because you have something to say, and in your belly, all of these things are coming, are have been are being or trying to be birthed out of you, right? And when people start to see, oh wow, this person is actually amazing. I didn't really take them for their word when they said that they could sing, when they said that they could paint, when they said that they could decorate, when they told me that they could, fix up these things. I took them from, but now I'm getting afraid because if they blow up, then they're gonna cast a shadow over my light, and I can't allow that. So I'm gonna, baby, you out of order. You got to sit down. I'm going to have to sit you down because you're operating out of order. And let me tell you, this is the order that man makes. The order is, if I came before you and I have been working these many years before you, I should get my claim to fame before you. And if I don't get my claim to fame before you, then you going above me is out of order and I cannot allow it. But guess what? Things are about to start getting out of order because spirit don't want it to be so. Spirit is saying, I am looking for open and available vessels that has no problem whatsoever connecting with me, has no problem whatsoever allowing me to come into their lives and using them. Spirit is saying, it is a new time, it is a new day for me to start working on this earth. So the things that you're used to, get ready for a disruption. And if you want to be a part of the program, you have to get out of fear. You can no longer fear what is placed on the inside of you, especially if it's something. In my old church, we used to call beast mode. We used to call the spirit sometimes get into the beast mode. So I'm gonna take it from that point. When your beast mode is ready to come out, you can't slow it down. You can't stop it. I don't care how much what's the word I want to use? How much patience that you have, how much control, sense of control, self-control, there we go, you have. When that beast is ready to come out, that beast is going to come out. That beast is going to show its head and say, baby, I am here. I am going to do what I have been set out to do. And if you're not getting with the program, then you can move out my way because I got an assignment I need to complete. I have an assignment that requires my part in order for the next part to begin. That is the order that Spirits talks about. Because when I get my deliverance, right? When I step out on faith and do things in faith, whenever my life is starting to blossom, and then I have a witness back here who has been watching me, and I didn't know they were watching me, but they saw me go from, as they say, from rags to riches. And they begin to study that thing. Now, I remember when he was on the corner street begging for coins. And now I've watched how he stepped out on faith. And now he's living in not one, not two, but three multi-billion-dollar homes. Ding dong. Brother, can I talk to you for a second? Because I need to understand how you went from rags to riches in such a short period of time. I need to understand how you got to this place. And yes, I'm using physical things, you know, mundane things. But it can happen spiritually as well. You know, people will be flabbergasted at how quickly God does things for you, no matter who you are. When you align yourself with his purpose for your life, you get on that fast track. You disrupt the notion of, I got to go through the 12-step program in order to get through this. No, baby. No, 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 no. When God has something for you and he has something that he wants you to do, you may walk through the door, and on your second day inside of the building, you are already on step 10. And it took other people 3 years to get to step 10. Why? because there's a hunger in you. There's that beast inside of you that's saying, because you walked on faith, because you decide to step out on faith, because you decide to believe spirit has something good for you. Spirit is going to give you some supernatural miracle grow, and you're going to grow overnight. You're going to be a chia pet. Chia. And when people start to try to dim your light, you can say, "Oh, no, 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 no." You can test me all you want to, but if you don't test the spirit with the spirit, baby, you're gonna be mind blown. Don't tempt your God. Don't tempt spirit with mundane things. That's why it's important for us not to be jealous of one another, because you don't know the paths. You don't know what people had to go through to get to that point. And it doesn't matter if they came in after you, 5 minutes after you. The fact that they made a change and are being used by God is a blessing and a miracle within itself. So stop being afraid to take care of yourself. Stop being afraid of going against the grain. Stop being afraid of not speaking what God gives you. Stop being afraid to ask questions when you don't know the answer. When you know you need guidance, stop it. Stop living a continual life of dread when you know there's happiness to be won. Who wants to be miserable every year? Miserable, living in your own head. Baby, go seek out that therapist and stop getting those headaches. Stop being afraid of your own shadow. Stop locking yourself indoors for days and weeks because you are afraid that the sky is falling. Baby, don't. No. You're holding yourself back. You're missing out on opportunities. And because this is the acronym is HIV, of course I'm going to talk about HIV right now. Baby, don't be afraid to take those medications that's meant to help you live a long time. We're progressing. There are now shots available for people living with HIV where they don't have to take a pill. But first, the doctors want to make sure that you can take your pill on time and at the right time every time, so that when they can give you the shot, that they will know that you will not lapse. Stop being afraid to tell your testimonies of how God, Spirit, have brought you out of some things. If you see somebody doing something that you think is weird, ask questions. Because I always tell people, and I've been saying this for years, that the first three letters of assumption tells you what? All right, don't be that. Because the minute you do that, that's when your mind and your gears start to wondering and you develop a whole story that's not true. And then you start gossiping what you believe is true and it's not true. And then that's how gossip gets started, right? That's how lies start to develop. That's how people start putting spells on people and talking ill will against people because of gossip, because of things that are not true. And gossip stirs up what? Fear. And then now you have a room full of people praying for somebody who don't need prayer. You have a room full of people that knows a story that was told to them that they are now believing and speaking out. Oh, well, such and such did such and such and such and such. And I heard that such and such did such and such and such. And the whole time they are spewing out things over that person's life that is not true. But no, baby, I don't want that over here. I don't want them to talk like that over here. I don't need them coming in my house with that mess. Okay. But what if that person is being sent to you so you can get their deliverance? But because this person has now put gossip in your ear, you're not going to do your part. And now this person is living with something that hey, they can't get out of. And you're the key person to help pull them through and pull them out. But because you received this gossip and you are now fearful, you don't want them across your threshold. Baby, you are disrupting the order of how things are supposed to happen. If you think I'm lying, go look, go reread the book of Paul, Saul, who turned into Paul. That is. If that's not a clear indication of doing what you were told by spirit and following things in decency and in order, that story tells you it's not just how we do praise and worship on Sundays and how we tune to spirit. And yes, it helps. But we also must know that decency and order also pertains to our everyday lives. And I was thinking, I was watching a young man earlier having a conversation with his family. They didn't know he was recording. He later said, yeah, I'm recording, but I want people to hear this conversation because it needs to be had. And it was a conversation that needed to be had. And I began to think about pride. Now, I'm not talking about the internal pride. I'm talking about pride in how we celebrate, because there are all types of pride. And I think people forget that, because most people, when I talk about pride, they always think about gay pride and the gay agenda, right? Well, first of all, there's no gay agenda. There's only spirit agenda. And that's that. Because spirit allows things and does not allow things to happen. Right? All right. So, but then I began to think, there's Jamaican pride, there's Mexican pride, Puerto Rican pride, there's um, beauty pageants that happen. That's a type of pride. There's what do we call those things? Church anniversaries, which is basically a pride for churches celebrating this is where we came from and look where we are now. That's the type of pride, right? And what we're doing is we're outwardly showing our love of life, outwardly showing our love of how God has brought us from A to B to C to D, and for however long you live on this good earth. It is expressing gratitude for living. And let me tell you what happens when you can't show pride in how you've lived and how you overcome. People do things in secrecy, and when they get caught, now they have to make an open apology for things that they done in closed doors. When it comes to my platform and how I initially started, Let's talk about HIV. When people can't express who they are openly, they do things that put them at risk of getting HIV. Not all, but there are some people. Because when some people express who they are, they get kicked out of their homes and they have to live on the street. I was watching the show, and the young man said that he got kicked out of his home at age 16. Now, you tell me a 16-year-old right now that can go out there and work a 9 to 5, pay bills, and go to the doctor, uh, go get their mental health, go buy groceries, and can live on their own like that with no assistance from a parent. Because when stories like this surface, of course, people can't live and express who they truly are. So they live in fear and they conform to what's the norm. They conform to what's being around them. And so now they're lying to everybody because that's what it all is. It's a lie. People live lies. There's other people that I have met that are Puerto Rican, or I'll say this, that are Hispanic, but because they can pass for white, they do so because they know how Hispanic people are being treated. There are people who are from the Caribbean. I'll just say that, from the islands, the beautiful islands that people vacation at, right? But there are certain stereotypes that are placed on people from these areas. So they hide the fact, some of them, not all, hide the fact that they are from these beautiful islands and countries that have rich history because they don't want that label placed on them. And not all the times are labels bad. Sometimes, or I'll say negative. Sometimes it's a good label, but because that person may not live up to that standard, they go through all this pressure because somebody has lied and said that this is what you can expect from all. And one thing, and I'll share this. So like there's the stereotype, and I heard it on a commercial, and I was like, ooh. Mm-mm. And they was talking about how Asian people are very good at mathematics. And yes, they are. A lot of them are, but not all. And so imagine that you are an Asian person and you fail at math. You were good at everything else but math. Now you got this weight on your shoulder, and now you're depressed because you can't calculate half the math problems. I was going to try to give one, but I'm not. No. Half the math problems that come to you. And so now you're feeling some type of way. So you shy away from the fact that you don't do math. So you pretend. You become the great pretender. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I passed that a long time ago. I'm not going to do that. No, no. I want you to figure that out. You're not going to use me. I'm going to charge you if you use me. Baby, you probably don't know how to do it anyway. So people put on these masks and they wear them proudly when that is not who they are. And what happens is that it becomes an internal battle that they must now face. It becomes an internal issue where now I can't hear what spirit is saying because the noises in my head from all these years of oppression, because that's what it is, oppression, is now on me. But when people are liberated and have true liberation from the inside and out, when they can accept everything that God has placed inside of them, when they can accept every being of who they are, they have no problems living freely and doing what Spirit has aligned for them on their path. And I know I'm using as some people will say, worldly terminologies, but it's the same thing that we've used in the church world for years. Different words, same meaning. You said tomato, I say tomato. We all know that it's a red fruit that grows off of the vine, and when sliced, makes good sandwiches. Amen. And ketchup if you like it, and barbecue sauce if you do it that way, and spaghetti sauce. Don't argue with me on the same word. One thing that I loved about on one of my journeys in this life is that I had to go back to school because the person did not believe that I could possibly understand the business world as a theater major. Well, let me tell you, I grew up with a business minded mother who taught me how to do business things. So, yes, I have an MBA that only taught me what I already knew. But anyway, on that journey, I enrolled myself into a class, an English class called, um, well, I forgot what it was called, but it was diving into the root word of words, the true definition of words, and it is called etymology. I suggest that people start using that dictionary to understand the breakdown of words because we've been using words incorrectly. We have an untrue understanding of the words. Like there is, and I know I probably gonna catch heat, but you know what? Bring on the heat, baby. I love it. It warms me up. It only adds fire to the fuel. But there's this, don't say good morning. If you look up the word, there's mourn, as in you're weeping over something, you're mourning over somebody, the loss of something. And then there's mourning. There's more. You're getting more in the time. That just made me want to look up something. That really made me want to look up something. The suffix ing used to form the present participle of verbs and the adjectives derived from them from Old English present participle suffix inde, from pi, cognates German in, Gothic and Sanskrit, Greek on, Latin ans or ins. The vowel weakened in the late Old English, and the spelling with G because began in 13th century to 14th century among Anglo-Norman scribes who naturally confused it with ing. And it says the suffix attached to verbs to mean their action resulting, their action, the result, product, material, etc. From Old English ing, also ung, from Proto-Germanic unga or inga, cognates Norse ing, Dutch ing, German ung. In early use, often denoting completed or habitual action. Its use has been greatly expanded in the Middle and Modern English, denoting completed or habitual action, right? I don't know why I'm going here. So I obviously it's something there. When you look up mourn, it is a noun The part of the day, the morning. Contracted from Middle English morwen, morgan, from Old English mercian or margin. I'm going to skip down. Middle Dutch Morgan, Dutch Morgan, Old High German Morgan, German Morgen, Morgen, Gothic Morgens, from pi, merk, perhaps from the root mer, to blink or twinkle. Morning, the first part of the day. Contraction of mid 13th century Morwinge or Moregenage. I don't know how you really say that word. It's Moregeninge. And it says on pattern of evening, originally the time just before sun rises. But if that means you get more twinkle or to blink, you get more blink, you get more twinkle, meaning that you're living. So, yes, there are certain words that you have to understand and break down before you start saying, don't say, don't do, because you would spread fear to people without their full understanding. And we have to stop spreading fear because, again, during this time, it is a time of disruption. It is a time to step forth. And I'm not calling, let me say this now, because someone say that man got online and start saying there's a time of disruption and he caused chaos and corruption. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to disrupt what you have been doing over and over and over and over and over again, expecting to get the same result. No, it is time to stop that. You have to disrupt the way that you have been taught and thinking about things because we're now seeing that they're lies. And I'm going to say this, and it is a dig. It is a wound that I'm going to openly address. That there was this notion that people of color can tolerate pain more so than any other race, and specifically Black people. And whenever they go to these doctors' offices, they are being prescribed Tylenol for masses of amounts of pain that will say, well, we don't want them to be addicted. We don't want them to get on pain. But when we go to the addiction clinics, who is actually in the clinics for overdose and opioids? Who is actually the people that's scrounging around looking for meth? Who are now introducing meth to young Black people that can't even afford meth? Let's talk about the math here. We're talking about people that are whose wallets have been oppressed for years, right? But that's changing soon too, so don't worry about that. Um and there's this narrative that we don't want to cause this thing that you yourselves are causing, which means that the way that you're thinking has to change. There's no other way to heal your community without healing the entire community. There's no way of fighting demons except that you face them. So, this erasure of Black history and histories of colors, baby, if you want to go there, if we want to get rid of all history, then so be it. Let's get rid of all of it. But if we get rid of all of history, Know that all businesses must now cease and exist. Why? What does that have to do with anything? Well, let's look at the history of the business. How was the business created and started? Where did the money come from to get this business started? If we're going to erase history, let's erase it all and all the benefactors of the historicalness that you wish to erase. If we want to take it back to the beginning, we can. History will always come up. The truth will always come out, no matter how hard you try to hide it, no matter how hard you try to get rid of it, it will show its face. Because the truth is light and lies are darkness. Freedom is light, bondage is darkness. Your freedom is inevitable. Your freedom comes with the truth and knowing the truth and speaking your truth. So it's now time to stop living in your own shadows, living in the shadows of other people, and now grabbing hold to what you know is true for you, not what's true for somebody else. Now we can stand proxy for somebody. So that is a thing. You can stand proxy for somebody. But the result is yours, not theirs. Unless God has it set up that way. Because sometimes God can say, your freedom is also your family's freedom, and you break generational curses. So that's why I'm saying that. But what's for you is ultimately for you. And just because you break a generational curse, don't mean that your blessing is going to look like the blessing of your sister, your auntie, your cousin, your niece, and your nephew. Your blessing may be you stop having self-doubt and you stop fearing the gifts that God has placed inside of you. While your auntie might get a new house, excuse me. Your niece and nephews, they might all of a sudden start saying, hey, I want to go to school. I want to have my own business. And they go back to school. And as they're going back to school, doors begin to open for them. But it all depends on the walk, excuse me, and the assignment the Spirit has for each of us. So stop shaming each other. Start understanding your own assignment and stop worrying about everybody else's. Half of the problems in this world is communication and being a busybody. If you was not being so busy trying to see what I'm growing in my garden, you would have the time to cultivate what is in your own backyard. So I hope you are gathering what I'm saying, because this fear thing has to stop. It has to. It must. People's lives, deliverances, and your future depend on it. Now we're what? 22, and depending on where you are, 23 days into the new year. Hopefully, within the first 21, you have decided to make some kind of changes that should now be your new way and mode of thinking and doing things. And if not, you can start. It's never too late to start a change. But understand that fear can no longer be a part of your narrative, especially if you've heard this on the night it was released or whenever you get this. It's meant for you. You have to stop living in fear. You can no longer live in fear and expect great outcomes. That's not how it works. So get unstuck, love on yourself, live in your truth, speak your truth, be in your truth, and allow God to lead you how God wants to lead you and who He's designed and who she has designed you to be. All right? And I have a saying that I'm going to say, and it's simply this: be blessed. I'm not asking you to. I'm not saying I hope you are. I'm telling you to be blessed. And I don't know what your blessing looks like, but you know what type of blessing that you want in your life. Just do it. Just be it. Just live it. Just be. Good night.